How's it going, everybody? I am Fabrizio Aiello. Welcome to What is Fabrizio Inking? And today I'm inking Hawkman. So this is some pinup art that I did. I don't really do fan art very often. I have a comic book called Horace H. Hoover. It's an occult detective set in the 1920s, 30s. It's like mystery, adventure. Check it out. It's available at alternativecomics.com. Hey, Kevin G. How's it going? Thanks for popping in again. Yeah, I wasn't actually planning on streaming, but I was really digging how this was turning out, so I figured I'd put another chunk of time into it and see how it went. What is your bourbon of choice? And is it straight? Or is it like an old fashioned? I never have enough room on my desk. I did quite a bit on the left-hand side here. I really need to balance this out, so I'll be working mostly on the right side. But we'll see how that goes. Neat, gotcha. I don't know Weller. I'm not that well versed. My brother's a big bourbon drinker, but I do enjoy it. I was never a big beer drinker, so I needed something else. So the trick for this mace, just want to make sure it's on camera, is it's a really large, dark object right in the front. So I can't make it all solid, because that would just be this sort of, no pun intended, black hole right in the drawing. So it is metal, so you have a lot of little dings and scratches and things that should catch the light. So there's going to be a lot of what looks like sketchy organic stuff, which hopefully works. But I want to continue to essentially make strokes around the form. You had mentioned a limited series of Hawkman. Was that the one with the shadow villain? Oh, you know what? I was going to grab it. I think I even have the collected. 1 second. No, I don't have it here. I was going to grab it and just kind of page through it because I hadn't looked at it in so long. Shadow Man sounds familiar, though. Like in the first issue, it's been so long since I read them. Oh, man. I think it is the Shadow Man, the one. If it's a 4-issue limited series. Hey, Everson Lirio. How's it going? Thanks for joining. Appreciate it. Thank you. Yeah, I started this the other day, and well, actually I started this about a week or so ago, and got a little more done yesterday, and trying to wrap it up over the next week or so. I really got to pull out those Hawkman issues. It had to have been something like 84-ish or something, maybe 85, but I can't imagine it would be later than that. Oh, cool. Yeah, it really is a it was a cool series, and he just seemed like a badass. Yeah, unfortunately, like all of my floppies, my short boxes, they're in my closet stacked really high. So for me to go through and grab issues is such a pain. I rarely do it. So like I said, I've bought collected versions of things that I own just to make it easier. And sometimes, to be honest, I want to look at the artwork. I don't necessarily want to read it, so having a duplicate collected is nice for that. I'm kind of particular about how nice my comic books are, so I can manhandle the collected stuff and not feel guilty about it. Is the beard your own creative license for him? Yes and no. There might be a bearded version out there. I just don't know if there is. I just thought he would look cool with a beard. I feel like he's been around for so long that there's probably been so many versions of him. He has to have a beard at some point. I'm not familiar if that's the case. I also can't help but always think of I can't think of his name, the Hawk, the bird guy from Flash Gordon. I haven't watched that in forever, but I always loved that character, and he, in my head, was always like I don't know, not a version of Hawkman, but very similar, really similar. And he had a big beard, so maybe that's where I'm pulling from visually. I think that, like, the version of the character that you're introduced to, as much as other writers want to change the characters, I think it's really hard to see them any other way. You know, for me, I think probably the introduction for Daredevil for me was the Romita Jr. and Nocenti run. So to me, that's Daredevil. Even though, I mean, I've gone back and read the Frank Miller stuff, etc., etc. I've read a lot of Daredevil. But in my head, the first version of Daredevil that comes to mind is that John Romita Jr. stuff. whereas for some people they would consider that heresy. You know, it's Born Again, it's Frank Miller, David Mazzucchelli. But I think it's hard. First impressions, can't get away from them. Another one of the reasons I wanted to do these fan art pieces is, in the world of Horace, I mean, it's a lot of, I don't really get to draw very, we'll say, stereotypical heroes, you know, in costumes. And I like doing that. So it really just gives me an opportunity to do more classic stuff. Like a story that I would like to do after Horace H. Hoover, or sort of in the middle, maybe, is very, we'll say, I don't know, Conan-esque. It's maybe more like Vikings and vampires kind of thing, but just because that's the stuff I also like to draw that, but I don't want to force it into Horace H. Hoover if it doesn't belong there. Kevin G. My first taste of Daredevil, he was in a crossover with Spider-Man when Spidey was in black costume, and that's what I expect on out. That's funny. I don't know if I knew that. This one's going to be tricky. I do want to make sure that I go back in and give them like scars and stuff like that, just to really drive home like the warrior aspect of it. Hopefully that's, yeah. I've been meaning to ask, is there an inspiration behind Max? His vocabulary somehow he's inspired from? So Max is kind of interesting. Physically, he's actually inspired by, I guess would be my great uncle. I had gone to Italy when I was younger, and he was in his 80s or something, but he had like these giant gorilla arms. I mean, he still is like an old dude, you know, but he really had these like big gorilla arms from a lifetime of working like in the farm and all that kind of stuff. But he dressed like a very typical sort of old Italian guy with like a vest and everything. So that was the original inspiration physically for Max. And then the language, I mean, I had a few reasons to sort of to kind of come up with the way he talks. One is I'm like, all right, his background is he's a New Yorker, and on top of it, he's like a bookie. So it's very sort of classic New York language. And I like the idea of his language really being very different than Horace's. So you can tell the difference. He's very to the point, very like a pragmatic kind of view of everything. He's almost like the everyman. So he, like, Max is kind of like us in the story, going to these crazy worlds. You know, Horace, his reaction probably isn't going to be the same as ours. So that's where I can use Max to really kind of drive home the kind of craziness of him sometimes. Everson Lirio, do you do all your inking with a brush, or do you use nibs too? I do. I would say, I mean, all of the comic book I would say is 100% brush. I have done illustrations with nibs for sure. Maybe a couple of months ago I did a pinup using nibs, but it's usually in conjunction with brush for me. I like to get the best of both worlds. So I'll do a lot. I like the main organic stuff, the big strokes and all that with a brush, and then the more fine detail, with nibs. I even use microns, but not for the comic book. That's always going to be brush. It's faster too. If I did the comic book pages with nibs, it would take substantially longer to do an issue. It would have a different feel too. You know, the brush is sort of classic comic book, so that's one of the reasons I really wanted it to work. But I did try everything. So before I started Horace H. Hoover, I did 7, like, essentially test pages, fake covers, to test out different styles. So one of those is using a micron, and that was my test. I didn't know, maybe I should do a really highly detailed illustrative style for the book. And I wasn't a fan of it. It's good. It was good for a pinup, but I don't think it really worked for a comic book. As much as I love like really realistic, detailed stuff for comics, sometimes I just don't think they work. Like Alex Ross is an incredible painter, but and I've read not all of his stuff. I haven't read the new Fantastic Four or anything, but I don't know. Every time I see them, I wonder if I would like it better if it was more of a traditional comic book artist, like John Buscema or somebody. So, again, that's probably personal taste, though, so I don't want to say it's the wrong way to do it. It's just, for me, I like that very traditional ink look. That was probably a longer answer than you were looking for, but it's something I'm constantly aware of, because I'll be working on my comic with a brush, and then I'll see other people using other tools, and I'm like, they're able to get this other effect and this other effect. Is that something I want to do? But usually you just got to stick with it. Like once you vet everything and you come to a conclusion, there's not a lot of benefit in constantly relitigating every decision you've ever made. And that doesn't just, outside of tools, writing, character development, all that stuff. I said I was going to stay on the right-hand side, and I immediately jumped to the left. I'm left-handed, so it's something you actually have to think about. It's just too natural. It's funny though, the inspiration question. Like you're constantly aware of things that you like, and sometimes I'm maybe overly aware of trying not to steal things. I'm like, okay, I love that. Make sure that I don't steal this or unintentionally do that. It's like the ultimate fear is unintentionally borrowing something that you didn't want to do. I don't know if that's stealing if you do it unintentionally, but still. To the point where I rarely actually watch or read things that would even be remotely sort of in the same vein of Horace H. Hoover. I pretty much stay away from everything that looks, I don't know, I'm not going to say sci-fi, but a lot of people have, not a lot, a few people have said that Doctor Strange or Horace reminds them of, maybe some Doctor Strange episodes or this or that. And I always wanted to watch it, but I don't want to get tainted by an episode or a character or something. And it goes the other way too. Like if you come up with a character, like I don't want to see somebody else do it, and then you have to consciously change yours. So I don't know if that made any sense, but yeah. But influences, inspiration, they can get dicey just because sometimes you don't even know. Then again, there are characters where you sort of start with an archetype. So for me, Slurp was, I'm like, okay, I want to draw Nosferatu. I love Nosferatu. So how do I have Nosferatu in my comic book? And at first, Slurp was just kind of a cipher for Nosferatu, and I guess I wasn't going to do much with him in the beginning, but the more I drew him, and then once I put him in those situations, he kind of became funny. So even when you intend to kind of take something as an influence, it doesn't last, because you have other characters and locations and scenarios, and then like their other or personality like emerges from that. So yeah, Slurp was initially a very different character, but I really love what he's turned into. sometimes characters will be essentially the like manifestation of an idea to, you know, if I don't know, if you're worried about something or you see something, you sort of imbue a character with certain personality traits, or they're a metaphor for something. So sometimes it goes in reverse, where it's not necessarily the character, but the concept, and then the character emerges from that. A concept that's always sort of in the back of my head is kind of being past your prime and doing things. And that story thread pops up a few times in Horace H. Hoover, and is embodied in one character in one story. There might be a little weird tangent with this spike, so we'll see. I want to make sure that the edge of the mace is very clearly in front Everson Lirio. Then I ended up, I worked for some time with brushes and nibs. I never really liked using technical pens. Technical pens are tough. Yeah, like anything else, like if you use them you can get there, but they feel technical. Yeah, sometimes you have to fight a lot more with them to get the lines and the effect, I think, what you're looking for. Then I ended up migrating to digital, mainly due to the difficulty of finding good materials in the city where I live. I needed to buy almost everything online. That I completely understand. There were a few times that I was going to go digital for similar reasons. You know, right out of college, I didn't really have any money for materials and paper and paint and all that kind of stuff. So this was early, this is early digital stuff, but it really was the reason I'm like, well, maybe I can do things digitally and save on paper and ink and all that kind of stuff. Unfortunately or fortunately, I'm not real good at digital painting or inking. I've tried. For some reason, I'm just not good at it. I do digital sculpting on ZBrush, on the Cintiq, and for some reason that just makes sense to me. But yeah, as far as inking, it's something I've really had a hard time doing. I enjoyed the little group dynamic. I ordered HH1 for my nephew, told him he just needs to give it a try as the vacuum hit was a bit much for a 15-year-old. Not like Wolverine. Thank you. I really appreciate that. It's funny because that is, it's so true. And I knew it going into it that the vacuum cleaner would be kind of a put-off for some people. But I knew that if they try it, I think they would like it because I don't treat him like a goofy character. He's not... I like Horace, and he's going to get to do some really cool stuff. And my goal was to make him... This is my long-term goal. Is to make him as cool as Wolverine or whoever. This is sort of a tangent, but... There's a TV show called Angel, which I used to watch a long time ago, and there was a character, and I'm blanking on his name, Wesley, and he was like just a comedic relief, dopey, just kind of a, intentionally like funny character in Buffy. And he came over to Angel, and he was sort of comic relief for a bit. Well, after a couple of years, they really turned him into like a badass, and that was, I always loved that idea of like taking a character that at the beginning you don't really take seriously, but in the end, you know, through some circumstances and some events, they're actually pretty cool. So that's kind of my long-term goal for Horace, is for him to be as cool as anybody else, despite the vacuum cleaner on his head. But thank you, I really appreciate that. It's a tough sell. I went to Baltimore Comic-Con and I met a lot of people. It was fun. People liked the book, but you could definitely tell the difference when people would walk by. I mean, you could see it in their eyes. They are looking for Spider-Man paraphernalia and shirts and comics, and I get it. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. So when they would see the vacuum cleaner, they'd be like, oh, and they just keep walking. Then some people would be like, what the heck is this? So alrighty. I'm totally neglecting the bottom of the page too. Was the con a worthwhile thing for you? It was really cool. It was huge. It was so big, and the biggest creators were there. Chris Claremont and Jay Lee, and I mean, you name it, they were there. So I knew that I would get a little lost, basically, in the crowd, which was fine. It's the first one that I really did on my own with all of my posters and the setup. So it was nice to know that I had everything I needed and it worked well. But I think long term, probably smaller cons are probably where I should be. People looking for more, and I actually hate the word indie sometimes. Different comics, that's all. Like non-superhero comics. Although, I don't know, spoiler here, but as the Horace books move along, we're going to meet some people that are, for all intents and purposes, I consider to be superheroes. I mean, we're a ways away from there, but it's I will say, new kind of superhero. And I'm ridiculously excited to get there, but it just takes time to work up to it, unfortunately. With some really interesting characters, good and bad. I've heard it said that the smaller cons are for readers and the big cons are for collectors. That's an interesting way of putting it. I never thought about that, but that actually makes perfect sense. Yeah, they're going there to get the best deals on the graded comics, or yeah, that's interesting. So I will definitely look for local cons. I live in Pittsburgh, PA. If I can do local ones, then I'll definitely do them. I'm less inclined though to head out of state, probably. For the time being, at least. It was also really cool to meet people that were interested in the book, because I wasn't sure what to expect, so it was pretty cool. Baltimore was hope nobody from Baltimore is in the chat. Baltimore was interesting. I'll just leave it at that. Interesting. Not a place I would be visiting, probably. Although I'm sure people say that about Pittsburgh, so. It's the weird you know, I guess. Yeah, I'm hoping. I have basically 2 arcs in my head that I really need to get to, and each are roughly 6 issues. It's hard to nail that down, but between those 2 arcs, then we'll meet like this world that makes Horace make sense a little bit. Sort of his powers and where he's from, but we'll meet all sorts of new characters that are just as kind of unique as Horace, we'll say. But they have their own special abilities, and Detroit is making a comeback. That con isn't far from PA. It is far from PA. Yeah. I've never been to Detroit. I've been to Michigan. Well, geez, that was a long time ago. Was that Detroit? I was in Michigan for a wedding, but I'll be honest, I'm not even sure where that was at. Yeah, I might do better at a vacuum cleaner convention than a comic book convention right now. It's really funny because I was thinking back to the first convention I'd ever been to. And it was in Pittsburgh. I wasn't living here at the time. But it was in Pittsburgh. I was right out of college. Came down with a friend of mine, and man, conventions were so different than Guar was playing at the convention. And it wasn't the convention center, it was, in the hotel, which all conventions back then were. It was such a different thing back then. Shoot. Will we get a new HHH in 2024? Definitely. The goal is to have a campaign for the last 3 issues, issue 3, 4, and 5, and so the campaign hopefully will be early in early in the year, so maybe February, something like that, and then I'll finish up issue 4 and 5, and that'll be fulfilled. So in theory, issues 3, 4, and 5 will all be done and fulfilled by the end of the year. Because I'm already done with issue 3 and about a third of issue 4. So, but you got the holidays and all this other stuff. It's a little hard to judge, but yeah, definitely. Like I want to make sure they're out and the series is done. The miniseries is done that way. We'll see what comes next. And whenever I do an issue 1, it's going to be a sort of a classic issue 1. So origin story, powers, all of the things that you sort of expect in a traditional issue 1. Yeah, I'm excited to get these finished. I'm really happy with issue 3. I think it's, each issue I do, I think is better. I mean, it's almost inevitable. The artwork, the story, all of that. So, very excited. In the meantime, though, there's definitely going to be, I'm hoping to release some other stuff too. Resin model, I think, coming out. Some other little things sort of supplement. I wanted to do we'll see how this goes, but I wanted to do a Twitter story, which basically just happens on Twitter. I have an idea for that, but I don't know. I don't know if the audience on Twitter's kind of into that, so we'll see. I'm currently working on a little mini for Max right now. So I think I have a Horace Mini. I'll finish up the Max Mini and do a Slurp Mini. I think at minimum, probably before the end of the year too. I'm a believer content grows the fan base. The more there is, the more people will notice. Yeah, me too. So that's why I'm really trying to supplement the comic book with stuff. Just because comic books take time. There's no way around that. Especially since I do everything in the comic. It's just, there's no way around that. So little things that I can do, like that fake letters page, or like I said, a Twitter story, little things that add essentially to the universe and to the character, I think that's the kind of stuff I like. So instead of just repeating myself over and over, which I know a lot of people do, but I'm like, unless you have something new to show, I don't really need to hear you say the same thing over and over. Or show the same image, you know. So that's why I do a lot of these concept art pinups too. Hopefully, new images with new characters kind of spark a little bit of interest. Heck, I'm even doing a game right now. Hey Ben, how's it going? Ben Soto. Thanks for popping in. You know what? It's funny you popped in. I was actually going to DM you and ask you if you would be cool to color this. So maybe we can chat later about it. I don't know what your schedule's like and all that jazz, but I didn't want to do traditional sort of Horace H. Hoover coloring on this. I wanted to get some other kind of coloring. My house is currently being turned into the Christmas version of it, which is always interesting. Cool. Yeah, I'll DM you sometime over the next few days, and we can chat. I know with the holidays and everything, things are crazy, but whenever I was drawing this, it just felt like it needed a definitely different kind of style for the coloring. Hey Jimmy Reyes, how's it going? Thanks again for popping in. Yeah, this is non-Horace H. Hoover art, so it's a little different for me, but I'm trying. Hey Captain Goodnight, how's it going? What kind of game is the HHH game you're working on? Oh, that's right, I did just mention that, didn't I? It's something I'm doing on a limited basis in my free time, but it'll be like I guess a point and click adventure mystery kind of thing. I figured that would be most appropriate, but I don't know how many people are interested in the game stuff, but I'm currently building a tool that lets you build the adventure. So think of it as like a town, and you log into an account and you select a map and you create locations, and those locations have floors, and then you have mysteries and puzzles. So I'm actually building the tool to let you create those stories using basically my artwork. It's something I had started a long time ago. I kind of picked it up recently, but I figured it would be really appropriate for Horace H. Hoover, so why not? So that's what I've been doing. A little bit on the weekends, just to kind of mix things up a little bit. Only have a few minutes left today, but probably might be able to, I don't know, might be able to finish this one more session. I think the next kind of pinup I'll do that's not Horace H. Hoover will be probably holiday themed, is my guess. I have a couple of ideas, maybe a collaboration with somebody, so that could be fun. And Tuesday, just a reminder, I'm on John's Longbox channel. If you're not, he has a great channel with like interviews and reviews of comics and things like that. So it's me, Brian Baugh, and Josh Howard. So if you're around at 7 o'clock, just check it out. It'll be fun. All right, I think I'm done. All right, let's see where we're at, huh? So I got a ways, decent amount. Still got to do this whole section up top. It's a little repetitive, so I'm kind of avoiding it. Definitely got to do some of the stuff over here. Got to finish his beard. Got to do all this stuff down here. Oy vey. Yeah, so I still have a chunk of this to do, but at least I got some progress on it. But thanks, everybody. I really appreciate everybody popping in. This just makes it a lot more enjoyable. I will be posting this whenever I'm done. Probably to sell, is my guess, if anybody wants it. Same with the pencils. Captain Goodnight, how far along is the game building tool? I'm currently in a game jam for making detective mystery games. Oh, that's cool. I've built other versions of the tool in the past, so this is sort of my 2.0. So in some ways it's from the ground up, but in other ways it's pulling other stuff that I already have done. I don't know, this will probably take me quite some time, but maybe over the next year or so I can get like a prototype of that done and see where it goes. All right, well, thanks everybody, I appreciate it, and have the rest of the weekend, whatever is left of it, that is. Talk to you guys later. Bye.